Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. We have Matt coming to talk to us today. And as we do here at Threads of Enlightenment, we turn it over to our guests. We welcome them. We are privileged and honored that a creator has come, presented themselves to us, and we want to get to know how they created what they have in their life today. So, Matt, welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, man.
Thanks so much, Ken. I just want to say it's an absolute honor to be on the show and to be part of your community and to say hello to all your guests. And yeah, just we had the little pre-interview beforehand, and it just it really resonated with me. So I'm going to do my best to do my part here. So my name is Matt Gardiner. I have been going through quite a transformation. I'd like to view it as anybody that's familiar with like the hero's journey. That's sort of what I've been going through the last year. I feel like I've come full circle, kind of had my rebirth, and now I'm going back in. I'm going back in for more. So I'll elaborate a little bit on that. Where I am right now is I was just coming out of a career that I've been doing for 23 years, and I just quit a couple weeks ago, actually. So I'm about 2 weeks into what I call like the rest of my life, my true calling. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And so I've been doing that job since I was 16 years old. It's not to backtrack too much, but I know you want me to kind of start where I am, but just to kind of give that little bit of backstory before we go back in time to that stage. But basically, what I've been doing now, Ken, is I've had this passion for coaching. I realized that a lot of what I was doing in my previous career was coaching and mentoring people, and I had it kind of down to a science as far as the job, the ins and outs. Obviously, doing it for 23 years, I had my my whole presentation very refined and felt very confident about it. And we'll get into the reasons I left, but that was sort of where my passion lies. So I ended up taking a 6-month sabbatical last year between April and October, and that was just based on a feeling, like an intuition I had that something was not quite. I wasn't getting fulfilled by my career anymore. So it was time to just take some time. And I was always sort of fantasizing about taking this, sabbatical. Just and it wasn't for health reasons other than just my own exploration and my own personal exploration. And everybody kind of, it's funny that everybody's sort of like, is there something wrong with you? Are you sick? Are you dying? I'm like, no. I need to take some time away. Just, hit the pause button, get off the treadmill and recalibrate and see, kind of see what's out there. And I have this feeling inside me and I just want to pursue and kind of unpack what this feeling is. And that's what I did. I remember by day 3 of my sabbatical, I went for a big nature walk just by myself, and I just had this flood of creativity. So I luckily had my cell phone with me, and I just had the voice recorder, and I just started riffing. I just started, our both musicians kind of just jamming, you know what I mean? Just improv. And it just had this flood of ideas that I think was just waiting to come out. And I was like, where is this coming from? I truly felt that I had tapped into something.
Yeah.
And it was super cool. And honestly, that's been sort of the foundation for, what I've been working on since then. Obviously it's taken on different shapes and it's refined itself. But that was the basis for it. Ken was like, day 3, I was like, okay, this is the feeling that I have. And now I'm able to articulate it and put some action to it, which is incredibly exciting.
That's awesome.
The flip side of that too is, with uncertainty and change, you're going to have the lulls as well, right? Yeah. Like I was so more or less like sort of plateaued, and I knew where I stood with my career, and it felt comfortable. I was in the comfort zone, and I'd make these incremental improvements and so forth, but I had never had this wide open space to create and reinvent myself, which on the flip side is as high as you can get with, having your ideas come to fruition and being excited about it. We all know how, exciting it can be. The inception of an idea and seeing it come to fruition is one of the most exciting things that you can do as a creator. Yeah. But then you have those lulls. You got to remember that coming out of that, comes the self-doubt and comes a degree of procrastination because you don't really know where to put the energy. And then you start getting hard on yourself and everything else that comes with creative blocks. So, that's what I ended up doing is the core. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I'm listening to the story. What did you have? When you were talking, you reminded me of this TV series I used to look at a long time ago called Manifest, and what you
Oh.
describe, what I call it the calling. And I remember that TV show, they would call it the calling
Mm,
when they'd have these little visions of things and they couldn't understand it. And it reminded me of something like that. When you and I are people like us that are in that space and you have this calling and you really don't know what it is, but you are not comfortable where you are. And then you begin to experience
yeah.
this deepness that it's stronger than people realize this, and that's why I call it the calling, because you have to, it causes you
Mm,
to do something, and like you did, you began to
yeah.
unhook,
Yeah.
and I believe that's the purpose of quote unquote what I call the calling, is to get us to unhook from the
Mm,
current program that you and I are running or in a part of, or actually that is running us. Um, and this calling is calling us
yeah.
to unhook from that program so that we can have a new experience. And so, yeah, I'm loving this story because it is really important. And you talked about some of those things that we have to deal with, and we'll go back and grab some of those things, the self doubts and all those things, because
Yeah.
I want you to talk to the people about some of those principles that resonated in you to cause you to use them to get to where your space is, because it's we use different tools based on who we are as
Oh, yes.
individuals, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. That's a good get me back on track here. So it's funny you mention that because the first thing that came to mind for the first thing I pursued in my sabbatical, Ken, was exactly this idea, the idea of creating. And I've been a musician for by this point about 22 years, and I always felt that the creative arts, like arts and culture, had been sort of dismissed as important as it is for health and wellness.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to raise awareness for creativity and artistic ventures as being a part of. We always talk about nutrition, and we always talk about exercise and stretching, and those are all fantastic, of
Hmm.
course. But somewhere way down the line is painting or learning an instrument, and so I really wanted to up the game on people's mentality as far as everybody is a creator, and I
Yeah.
always feel that, like, there's a lot of people that are told from an early age, they try singing, and somebody just dismissively goes, oh, you're not a singer, you're tone deaf,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then they never start again, right?
Hmm.
Which is funny to think, Ken, because, like, if somebody is like a little bit slow at reading when they're growing up, we don't go, oh, you can't
Yeah.
read, don't even try. We encourage them, we
Yeah.
support them,
Yep.
and then help them get to the stage that they are. Or you look on the flip side with sports. If somebody's not skilled at a sport, we put them in a basketball camp. We
Yeah.
help them. We support them. Yet I always found with arts, it's almost the opposite. You're putting yourself out there. You're vulnerable. You're showing a drawing or a painting you've created, or reading a poem to somebody. And if all it takes is a teacher to say, that's no good, or a parent,
Yeah. Yeah.
worse yet, a parent to go, you're not a drawer, and then you never try again.
Hmm.
So that was the whole idea of this online course that I created, and it's called Creative Minds Conservatory, and it's all about re-engaging your creative side, because I believe everybody's a creator, and that's why it's fantastic to be on the show. It's all about
Yeah.
creation and tapping into our inner artist. I believe everybody is an artist. I believe there's a
Absolutely.
Picasso statement of that. Everybody's an artist. It's hard to maintain that. I'm paraphrasing, but it's hard to maintain being an artist as we grow up. We talk about programming. We talk about different things we picked up. So that's what it was, and it's interesting.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
Matt, I believe that our life is an art. You're painting. You're painting that canvas. Your life is a piece of art, man. That's just my belief system. Is that
Absolutely.
um, we
Completely
and
agree
that's
with you.
why for me it's
Absolutely.
very painful when I hear people
And
criticizing other people because they're painting their art. How can you? They're not turning around and criticizing the art that you have created. So I find this attacking of each other's painting, if you will, very painful as a society when we look at each other and just come at each other in that fashion, because I believe that's who we are. We are naturally creative people. And because of that, you have genres, as we talked about. You have musicians. You and I talk. We're both musicians. We create writers. All of these things. When a guy is driving to a basket, um, or when a golfer is playing, that's art, man. I mean, because they're thinking
Yep.
a process
Yep.
by which how they're going to get to their goal of this basket or this hole or whatever, and they are creating in that space. And then you and I are experiencing a form of voyeurism as we watch this art being created in a live form. And that's how I feel people's lives are, man. That's just my take on this walk that we're in currently.
Yeah, Ken, very well put. I couldn't put it better myself. I love the idea, this analogy that like our life is our masterpiece. Our everything we do has artistic merits to it. Like you say, there's a process, there's creativity, is whole brain, the logic versus like the imagination, and
Yep.
it combines and comes together. So, and you know what? If you look up the dictionary definition of artist, obviously there's the obvious one of like somebody who pursues an artistic endeavor, but there's also when to your point, when you're talking about athletes, it's like you hear about Wayne Gretzky or Michael Jordan, they're like, man, that guy is an artist. Like
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky's an artist on the. It's more so, it leans more so to somebody that's extremely skilled and gifted at something.
Hmm.
They are an artist. You can have like the surgeon is an artist with a
Yes.
scalpel. There's
Yes.
just something about
Yeah.
his process and the way that he just brings it together. So by that definition, to your point, everybody is an artist.
Yeah.
Everybody is there's something about you that you are just gifted and skilled at,
Yeah.
because you're passionate about it. You've put the experience, you've put your life experience into it, and by that definition, you are an artist.
Yes.
So everybody is an artist. So I wanted to
It's a
get that. That's important to say,
Yeah.
because it's true, and a lot of people don't view themselves as that, and it's a shame.
It's a shame. It truly is, and it's
So
Matt. Let's go back a little as to the beginning of your programming, and I believe we all began that programming from birth, and our parents and grandparents and all those folks. And I try to tell people that these people are all imperfect because of whatever background they came from, whatever preconceived programming they already have. They are going to now deposit some of those into us. And so, talk to me about the beginning of your family. How was your family life? How did you grow up? Siblings, that type of stuff.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. I've done a lot of thinking about that exact subject as far as like ancestral,
Hmm.
patterns and karmas that have been passed down. Absolutely. I've been doing a lot of thinking
Yeah.
about that recently, Ken. So yeah, to go back, I had a fairly sheltered childhood for probably the first 12 years of my life. My mom was a
Mm.
stay-at-home mom. I have one older brother.
Mm.
He's 2 years older than me. And, everything was pretty hunky-dory. We lived in a fairly, smaller city. It was Prince George, British Columbia, Canada, about 80,000 people. We were kind of in a suburb of Prince George, so very sheltered. We were very, we were able to do our thing. We had a forest right outside our backyard. I could literally hop the fence. So I spent a lot of time in nature
Nice.
and fairly comfortable upbringing. But my parents ended up getting a divorce when I was in grade 8. And in grade 8, in where I'm from, there's no middle school, so it was grade 8
Yeah.
to 12. So I just started high school, and I was very small at the time, and my parents were going through a fairly messy divorce. I felt very in between. I was kind of the moderator. I felt like I was the moderator between my two parents, trying to, say, oh, they didn't mean this, or my dad didn't mean this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And I felt that was my duty to do. So I was trying to sort of temper their relationships, because as soon as lawyers get involved
Mhm.
with a divorce, it starts getting very.
Yeah.
That's kind of when things got fairly messy. So I was bringing that to school, and it was a transitional time for me. I mean, you're starting to get interested in the opposite sex, and it's a whole different thing. I'm going from elementary school where I'm like grade 7, the king of the hill, to this small grade 8 in the land of giants, where you got these 18-year-olds that have mustaches and they're 6 feet tall, and they look like adults to me. And I was a prime target for bullying for the
Yeah.
first couple of years there. I was very shy because of everything that was sort of going on in at my home life. And then I'd take that to school, and I think I just had this vibe to me. I was a little bit aloof, and
Yeah.
kind of had a confused or hurt look on my face, and ended up, kind of just keeping to myself, which of course is a beacon for bullies to kind of target you. So
Yeah.
I definitely had some of that for the grade 8 and 9 until I was able to sort of, for better or for worse, I was able to overcome that simply by doing the if you can't beat them, uh, start. I basically was like beating them to the punch. I would start if they did something to me, I'd just start laughing, and they didn't get the reaction they wanted.
Yeah.
So like, oh, this guy, okay, that's not bugging him, right? Meanwhile, of course, it did bug me, but I figured out a way to sort of get them to perceive that I was no longer a fun target because I wouldn't get upset. I would, in fact, laugh at them when they bullied me. So it was a very quick way to sort of dissolve that.
Yeah.
And what that did for me, Ken, is I I was always friendly with every circle in
Hmm.
high school after that. The labeling them all, the jocks, the stoners, the musicians, the athletes,
Yeah.
the nerds, the loners. I made sure to be very harmonious with everybody because I knew what it felt like to be an outcast and how bad that feels, how rough that makes you feel. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that was a big thing for me, and I've carried that into my adult life, just making sure that I and being a musician as well, I fancy myself trying to make everything harmonious.
Yeah.
I'm not as big on confrontation as a result, which has been kind of one of my weaknesses as well. I like just everything to kind of fit together, and everybody, let's all get along, within reason. Obviously we have to, step in and show our boundaries
Yeah. Yeah.
in a healthy way as well. So that was a big part of it. And one other thing I'd like to throw in there, Ken, that was my Achilles heel was alcohol. So I got into playing in a band about 16. Was my first group of friends that I had in high school, and one friend had a set of drums. I got a guitar. My other friend had a guitar. So we started experimenting with the the rock and roll lifestyle, shall we say? So I started that fairly early on. And being in a band, it's like one of the only jobs that encourage you to drink on the job. It would seem. I'm sure you remember this, right?
Yeah.
It's you show up to a venue and they're like, "Here's some drink tickets. Thanks for playing tonight." It's
Uh-huh.
like, there's some beers in the back there for you, and it's like, okay. It's kind of funny to think, right? It's the only
Yeah.
job they're like, yeah, drink up here. You drink on the job. Go ahead. Very
Hmm.
strange when you think about it that way, but that's hand in hand with music. So
Yeah.
and that was my big thing to overcome, Ken, was the drinking. It got to the stage that you go through your different stages,
Yeah.
and initially it's kind of this thing that's helping me get out of my shell, or so I perceived
Hmm.
anyways. It's my best friend, right? It's like alcohol puts its arm around me and goes, you don't have to be shy. And you know what? I'll give you the courage to go talk to that girl you like, and
Yeah.
all these different things. It fills in a lot of gaps for you and checks a lot of boxes initially. And towards my mid 20s and 30s, it really started turning on me. So that was what I had to overcome
Yes. Yeah.
in order to kind of get to the stage that I'm at now. That was my big thing. That was my my outlet
Yeah.
for my frustrations with with the divorced parents and
Yeah.
such, for sure.
It's uh, how you're explaining, because I know the divorce rate is a pretty high number within the space of humanity today, and you have the kids that are in there, and the parents are going through this traumatic time, the separation, and the kids are in the middle of this traumatic time, and everyone has to find a way to cope in this trauma that is just an onset, and everyone finds their middle ground, I guess, their space of peace after the war, um, of the emotional turmoil tossing back and forth. But we all have to find something, how to cope. And I love the way that you took something that people were utilizing against you, and you turned it in a way and gain a type of power from it, because that's what it was, that
Mm.
they used it to belittle you or to put you in a space, but you took that power away from them. And as you grew,
Mm.
and you got into the music, we I tell people we get busy and skillful in learning how to hide, um, and how not
Mm,
to, how we manage our situation in life. We get very skillful in it. And we have, you started to bring in the additional stuff of alcohol within the space of music. It is the coolest thing because I remember when playing and stuff like that, and that's the first thing they'll give you is that drink, um, and
yeah.
many of us lose control. It becomes the master of us, vice versus we mastering it. And so um, it is it ends up to be a coping mechanism by which we utilize to
Mm,
help us to move from one space to another. And I tell people, once you realize these things, you will begin to learn a little about yourself because when you were talking about that head on your head that comes on later on, that begins to question, man, how did this happen to me? What happened? So talk to us
hmm
a little more as we're moving from the space now. You're introduced to music in a sense. You have the band, you have your alcohol, and you're moving from that space. Talk to us about some of
mm,
those demons, Matt, that you started to
mm,
identify because we start looking at some of them around there. What were they, and how did you begin to have your conversation with them?
yeah, great question. First off, I love what you said when you're mentioning we get very skilled at hiding,
Yeah,
or like I'm just kind of coming to that now, Ken, that a lot of my patterns that I've been running
yeah,
have been creating these like scenarios so I can push down my true feelings, right?
yeah.
So I've always had an issue with feeling significant, and instead of just acknowledging that and being comfortable with that and talking to my inner child and
Hmm.
doing the healing, I panic and I go, oh no, it's okay. Like I'll hop on the computer now and just like,
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
worry about it. Like I'll figure out something to do. Right. And I'm literally just now, it's so funny, right? I'm 40 years old and I'm just now realizing that was the pattern I've been doing my entire life. I've been intentionally silencing what my inner child is saying or desiring,
Yeah.
instead of just giving it to my inner child. It's okay that you feel insignificant. So I just wanted to touch on that because it's amazing the way that you phrased it, and it's so important for everybody to hear. So thank you for bringing that up.
No problem.
So as far as I'm going to give two major points of when we're talking taps on the shoulder. These ones were the smacks on the head. So I was getting a lot of the taps on the shoulder. I was acknowledging it. I'm a very spiritual person.
Mhm.
So I've always been sort of open to synchronicities and what I believe is like my ancestors that are, in heaven, or how, whatever you believe,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
afterlife, that are kind of guiding me. And I do very much believe in that. And so I was aware of these types of things happening
Hmm.
in relation to my drinking and my life path that I was on. But what it took was, I was at 27 years old. It was 2008. I ended up actually hospitalizing myself with
Mm.
acute pancreatitis from over drinking, and I was in the hospital for 3 days.
Mm.
And I honestly, at one point, thought I wasn't going to make it. Like, I was in an incredible amount of pain. Anybody that's had
Mm.
acute pancreatitis, it's no laughing matter.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember it being on the hospital bed. Like, it took them a good few hours to figure out what was even wrong with me before
Yeah.
they could get me any kind of pain management or anything like that. So I just remember being in the hospital for 3 days, really reflecting on my life. And I'm like, man, I'm 27. Like, what am I doing to myself? And like, this is truly my, the whole time, this is truly my second chance. So as soon as I get out of here, I'm gonna live life to the fullest. And it's gonna be, things are gonna be different.
Yeah, yeah.
But so guess what I did 24 hours of getting out of the hospital? I had a beer in my hand,
Yeah,
right? I'm like, I dodged a bullet. I actually feel fine now.
yeah.
That was scary. It's behind me now. I can still drink. So the thing and this is insight into like the addict brain, is it was just what I did is I changed what I was drinking. So for me, it was like, okay, I can't drink rye anymore because the dark liquor, hard liquor is what did this to me.
Yeah.
Beer is fine. Beer, nobody ever gets sick off beer. It's hard to get hungover, right? You pee every couple beers, so you're getting it out of your
Yeah,
system. It's
yeah.
all good. I can do beer. So, so that's, how ridiculous that is to look back on it. But
Yeah.
that's what I did. And then so, before you know it, I'm up to, 20 beer a night. I'm, and it's just, I've just replaced one thing for another. And so I went with that for a few more years. And fast forward to, I turned 30 and had some issues with my girlfriend, my long-term girlfriend. We had a pretty rough, a couple of years apart. We're back together and we're actually engaged now, and 15 years, going on 15 years. So, but we had a couple of years that we were apart because we had to kind of get some things out of our system, I think.
Mhm.
So, and anyways, I was having a rough time with that, and I was just over drinking. And one night I don't know if you can still see, I got a bit of a scar on my forehead. I decided I wanted to have some cigarettes because, cigarettes and beer go so well together. So, but I hadn't been smoking for quite some time. And anybody that knows that feeling, you get a very massive head rush. And I was like, oh man, I got to go downstairs and relax for a bit. And that's all I remember. I remember coming to, and everybody around the party was like, are you okay? And I was like, whoa, what's going on? And I cracked my head open and there's blood all over the, the concrete floor. And somebody just said it sounded like a watermelon. So I must have not got my hands up. I just went right down and, went back to the hospital again, got stitched up, and it had a really, really bad concussion, Ken. Like I definitely had, like, I guess, the post-concussion syndrome. And the thing was, I kept drinking, or attempted to, but anybody that's had a concussion and tried drinking, it really doesn't go well at all.
Yeah.
I had one beer, I'd just go blank white. I wouldn't be finishing sentences. I'm pretty much drooling on myself. My blood pressure's through the roof. I was just a mess. And, it kind of took some time to bounce back from that. So as I was recovering from that is when we really had the big breakup, myself and Darcy. And I was just like, I can't keep living like this. So I took 5 weeks off work and I went to my first AA meeting. And a good friend of mine, Brent, who's no longer with us, unrelated, he had a diabetic complications. He passed away at 33. But he took me to my first AA meeting. He had been through some Narcotics Anonymous and AA meetings himself. And he's the guy that took me to my first one. And I never would have gone if he hadn't supported me with that. And that literally changed the trajectory of my life, because I wouldn't have gone in there by myself. As soon as I got to the parking lot, I was like, okay, this is close enough for me. I'm good now. And then I remember Brent, just in his own way, he's so like happy. Yeah. And he just looked at me. He's like, man, no, it's all good. We'll go in there. It'll be fun. I'm like, okay. So I go in there, Ken, and the first words after I sat down, the first words, I don't even remember what they were, but there was just an energy shift.
Yeah.
And I felt, I hold my stress in my shoulder and my neck.
Yeah.
And I literally felt weight come off of me. And I started kind of tearing up, and I was like, okay, something is different. Something is different. And that propelled me for 3 years and 3 months after that.
Wow.
Sober and alcohol free. And my life completely changed. Everything started really upping. And I was just like, I'd never felt that, because I'd never been alcohol free since I'd been 16. So it was this huge freeing experience for me. And what happened after that is I said the 3 words that you should never say when you're an addict of any kind is, I got this. So I felt I had enough life skills to try on drinking again and have moderation.
Yeah.
And I tried with 0% success rate for the next 4 years to add moderation back into my, my life. And you know what? So it was April 2019. I had just a really sloppy party weekend that right before, so my dad passed away right before Christmas 2018, and he never kind of broke that curse. He had the hard living. He was a drinker and smoker, and I believe that's that kind of lifestyle. He was 66 when he passed away. That's what led to his untimely demise. And you know what? I used that, Ken, basically coming out of that weekend, I had to leave that Monday morning to go to my dad's celebration of life. And that's back in my hometown. And it was about an 8-hour drive. And the whole way out there, I was just doing a lot of reflecting I had the music off. It was just silent in the car. I was just with my own thoughts very intentionally. And I was doing some of that voice recorder stuff. And I was just, the stuff that was coming out of my mouth was starting to scare me because I was
Yeah.
getting very dark and, started to have some suicidal ideation and things of this. And I decided on that drive that, as a tribute to my dad and my family, both sides of my family have
Yeah.
issues with alcohol. I am going to take it upon myself to stop. And we were talking about ancestral healing and stopping programming and karma and such. I am going to take it upon myself
Yeah.
to. It stops with me. I am so that's where I am. I've been sober. I'm coming up on 3 years alcohol free now, and the anchor thought being
Congrats.
the reason beyond me,
Yeah.
outside of me, is to honor my family name on both sides of my family and to honor my dad as well, as far as just staying clean and sober and then helping other people
Yeah. Yeah.
as well, because I feel I'm still attached to it enough that I'm not, it's still fresh in my head,
Yeah.
and I know what people are going through. And, if I can do it, certainly you can. And that's kind of where I'm at now, Ken.
Yeah, it's a powerful story, Matt, just absolutely powerful. And I love what the tool that you use to propel yourself from the state that you were living and how you moved from there. And the fact that you say that you now want to help people and stuff. And I always encourage people. The process, I believe personally, Matt, for you and I to go through our stages of enlightenment is so that you and I can become teachers, conduit by which we can now turn back and assist those. We're assisting them to bring them aware of basically a life coach's position is to make them aware of who they are and how powerful they are. And that's, I look at Jesus as one of the life coaches, one of the, that we have documentation that you could see how he did it. He went to these guys, he picked a bunch of people, and every time he did something marvelous, he looks at them and he says, or they're calling on him to do something. He says, "Where's your faith? You can do the same thing. I mean, you can do
Yeah.
the same thing." We saw that actually Peter did the same thing that he did. Peter got up and walked on water just like he. So you and I can walk on water, but I believe that life um, taps a few people on on the shoulders to make us aware, because um, we can be trusted with what we will do with the information. I know many people, Matt, that have gone through and they have become they were selfish and never were able to turn back um, to assist someone to bring them out. But I love hearing the story, those that are not selfish, those that are true life coaches, the people that turn to people and direct to them the power that they are, the creators that they are. And as they got their revelation as to who they are, man, just like you began to get your revelation as to who you are, you use your reasoning was to be this different so that both families can see. You want to honor them. Your reasoning that you utilize to cause you to plant that seed, to push right through, to bring all your emotional, all your the other things that you have to come and overcome to get to you where you're
Oh,
now
thanks.
have
No, you got
created
a
a
real way with
program
words, Ken. I love the analogy and the
that you
comparison.
can
Like,
now
I never
utilize
thought of it like that.
and
Jesus being like,
teach
one of the first
someone
life coaches. So
the
cool.
power that
So,
is
so cool.
them.
And
I
yeah, you're
love your
absolutely
story,
right.
man.
And that's, I guess, what leads us to, my current stage here. And that's what I've been pursuing for the past, I'd say 8 or 10 months. I've been taking some absolutely wonderful coaching certifications. So I feel very like my energies have been focused and refined, and I have, like, to your point, a program. I
Yeah.
just released a free ebook that will, I'll send you the link for any of your listeners that would care to read it. It's a 45-page memoir, basically, of my trials and tribulations with alcohol. So I call it Recovery Roadmap, and it is my personal hero's journey. And I want to elaborate a little bit on that. I'm sure everybody's heard of the hero's journey, but I
Mhm.
love using the analogy or just the visual of it. And it shows up so often in books and movies
Yeah.
and so forth. And basically the three stages being that's again sort of almost a tap on the shoulder, a calling, a realization that something isn't right with your life, and you're about to go on a journey, this hero's journey. So stage 2 is kind of when you go into that lull, that dark night of the soul sort of thing, where you have that ego dissolve, and you're realizing your energies, what you have to
Mhm.
do with them, and you realize that there's going to be some work, and you're kind of going into almost like a downswing. They call
Yeah.
it like the cave, right? The innermost cave, where you have to really confront a lot of your crap, your BS. You got to
Yeah.
call yourself out on this. And then you come out, and you have this period of rebirth or reborn. You integrate all these new life lessons and everything that you've put towards. And to your point, the most important part of that is you come back home. It's a full circle, and you come back home with this new knowledge. And then at that point, it's up to you to then help other people and help elevate them.
Yes.
And then you can go through you don't have just one. Life is continually going through this hero's journey. So I truly
Yep.
believe I completed my one, and
Yes.
I'm going back in. And you know what? I am not afraid of going to those dark areas anymore, because I know what
Yeah.
happens when you come back out of it. And just
Yeah.
I love it, man. And that's where
Yep. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
That's where our creative power is seen, though, Matt. It's not seen when everything is good and rosy, is it? It is seen in the dark places because, and I use the analogy. This is the analogy that I use. Um, we're looking at God as the premier creator, and He comes out and He looks out, and the place was dark and messy, man. And then He started creating what he wanted. He said, I needed light. I got a plan that I'm putting together that I want to put this creation of mine on this planet and give him dominion over this universe. So
Mm,
I gotta, but where I'm looking out right
right.
now, and that place is dark. So I gotta, what? I have to create. And so it is in the dark places, man. And I tell people, do not be afraid of the dark places. It is the place that you are the most
Mm,
powerful that you will ever be. Because that's when you turn and you look
mm,
at that situation and you do the same thing that God did. He said, He
mm,
spoke into it. He said, let there be light. And you and I say stuff like,
right.
I am not going to be, this is not where I want to be. I'm going to make a decision. I'm going to change. And
Oh
so we
man,
began to
very well
speak
put. Very
in
well
that
put.
darkness,
Ken, I
man.
got to give you props, man.
And
You're a
that's why
fantastic host. I can
you
see
and
why
I are
your
not
show does
afraid
so
of
well.
it
You have a very
because we get to
powerful way
see
of speaking,
even
and
greater
and
aspects
framing things. I love
of
it. I
who
just
we
love it.
are.
Thank you.
Thank Oh, thanks, man. Thank you. But Matt, I want to thank you, man, for coming. I love this story that you're talking about and you're sharing, and that you're opening up to people to see
Yes.
that um, we are human spirits. We are creators. We do not have to stay in the circumstances that we are currently in. You don't have to settle. That is the whole purpose of Matt talking with
Mm,
us and sharing his story to show you that you don't have to settle. Doesn't matter how bad it gets, how dangerous he gets. He got hurt to the place where in the hospital. I mean, he's telling us the stories and some of the things and some of the dark places that he visited. And he's now standing
mm,
and he has presented a product by which you, the listener, that is going through a similar story like he is. Your canvas looks familiar. You have someone that you can utilize and talk to ask him how did he mix that color to get that outcome? How did he put, what did he use? Um, what combination of colors did he use to bring out the canvas that he has today? And it is my hope that you guys get in touch with Matt, man, and talk to him. How did he? What colors did he mix so that he can get you in a space where you are? And you do that. You have that conversation with him when you purchase his books, when you get into his class, when you get those things. And I always say to people, when you buy someone's book, you're having a one-on-one with Matt. You're having a personal conversation. Your space is comfortable, and then you begin to open this page and you begin to read and have a personal conversation with Matt, and where he's able to talk to you via those pages and the words that he wrote,
Mm.
because he experienced
Absolutely.
those,
Yeah.
and
Very
his
well put. Thank you so
experience
much for
as
being
you read
generous
them
about that, Ken. So
carries
yeah,
power,
basically,
and
yeah,
that
exactly.
power
Just to kind
will
of to
get
wrap it up
you
as far as
to
the
see
offer and
who
all
you
that.
are, that
I do
yes,
have
I can do it
the
too.
ebook,
And I
which
know
is sort of it was
Matt will
very cathartic
testify
for
to
me.
that.
It was a experience of, and it works twofold because it's a very empathetic, like you say, it's like a a private conversation with me, and I'm confessing. I'm coming fully clean with all the good, the bad, the ugly about my experience, specifically about my addiction and overcoming it. And there's some humor in there because, and there's some painful spots where you kind of go, man,
Hmm.
why can't you snap out of this? I always find it
Yeah, yeah.
fascinating hearing about how strange of behaviors, and it is somewhat humorous, right? With when you're just like, wow,
Yeah.
why were you doing this kind of stuff? And coming out of it though, I have a fairly strong set of like basically I call it my roadmap. The things that I transferred this negative, all-encompassing, draining energy of an addiction, and getting that out of my system, and then allowing this other set of energies in, and what I did with that energy in order to keep myself in a better
Yeah.
frame of mind. And so that's all what that book is about, and that's an invitation from there to come onto the website. I do have a sort of all-encompassing coaching package, which has 4
Yeah.
one-on-one coaching calls. I do obviously a free consultation as well, just to kind of open that relationship with you. And they're working on a course right now that basically it has sort of the four pillars. You have access to the course the whole time. It's just about the way we about our inner dialogue. It's reframing some of our language, getting rid of certain words that we've been using, that we've learned. You've talked a lot about on the show about programming, words like should, and words like I could do this, and being indecisive with ourselves, and ambiguity, and with this level of ambiguity, removing that, and just plucking out certain words, putting in different words.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the sentence is the same, and it just completely shifts the power of the sentence that you're telling yourself. Basically, taking a
Hmm.
state of negation and then charging it as an affirmation. The exact same sentence, is pluck a couple words out. So it's all about language, correcting the language in these programs that we've learned from elementary school. Let's face it,
Yeah.
from our parents,
Absolutely.
and nothing. I'm not calling out any teachers or parents. That's the way they learned, and that's just the way that we've been going about things. Also get into, I just completed a certification in
Yes.
sound therapy. So there's a custom sound therapy track that I will make for you, depending on, a questionnaire, just getting a little bit about like some of your ailments, if you're prone to
Yeah.
headaches, or if
Hmm.
you're having trouble sleeping. So that's a very unique offering that sort of ties in with this, because, I both being musicians know the power of, vibration and frequency healing and such. So getting into that as well. Getting into some guided meditation, properly breathing. I found a lot of people are in that sort of mild stress response most of their days. So their breathing stays up very high in their chest. So
Yeah.
spending the time to getting back into that nice abdomen breathing, and getting into the parasympathetic, nervous system. And that is where you do all your
Yeah.
creation. That's where you're going to come up with, more positive thoughts about your life and everything. So it's sort of this all encompassing, holistic
Yeah.
approach to getting yourself unstuck, focusing on that, getting that stagnant energy moving. If you do have, I'm sure that, addictions show up differently for different people, whether it's sugary foods, video games, whatever it may be that's distracting you from the true version of yourself. So releasing that energy and then inviting in your creator energy. And from there, that's when you set goals. You don't set goals until you recalibrate.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about, Ken. It's and I call it the Recovery Roadmap is the program. And the ebook, the sort of the invitation to open our relationship is obviously free. And just to kind of put myself out there, show that I'm vulnerable. I am by no means a perfect person, but I'm working on it. So that is the package as of right now. And I really appreciate you, Ken, and to all your listeners for allowing me to come on and talk about it today.
Yes. Yes. Oh, my pleasure, man. I am actually glad that the people get a chance to hear what you have created. As I mentioned, creators will always be on the move, and I guarantee you, 6 months down the road from here, Matt has created something different as well because of he's talked about this new journey that he's about to engage in, and I'm sure as he goes into that journey, he will extrapolate wisdom, knowledge, and tools that you and I can utilize to assist us to become better human spirits while we occupy this planet called Earth. I really appreciate you, Matt, coming by and depositing such beautiful energy and power to us that it is my hope that those that are listening to this podcast, as they hear what his story is, that you can go and find his information. We're going to provide that as well so that you can, I want you guys to bond yourself with him, get his books, get to his program so that you can now be one of his disciples as Jesus created those. And those disciples changed the world, because I want to hear Matt tells me about some of his disciples.
Ken, my pleasure,
next
my
time we
absolute
talk
honor. Thank you
about
very
you
much. I
guys
feel
getting out there
incredibly
and
blessed
creating
for
other
you having me on the
programs as a
show
result
and our time
of
today.
you
I feel very connected
partnering
with you. We're definitely
Matt.
safe
Matt,
to
thank
say
you so much,
we're going to
sir.
be long-term friends coming out of this. I feel very connected with you. So thank you very much.
Oh, most definitely. Thank you so much. Everyone who's listening to this podcast, we hope to continually help you to learn how to embrace moments of darkness, because it is in the darkness that we learn how to develop and use our abilities to truly see those parts of ourselves, often invisible to us, in the light. It becomes your responsibility to navigate through all of your trials, to find out who you truly are and begin your journey to loving yourself, which is possibly one of the most difficult things you will ever do in your life. To love yourself and to find the real you, but always remember to enjoy the journey. Thank you for coming by. Please subscribe. And if you can support us financially, we deeply appreciate it.